Thank you, Alexander, for joining us for our second Catholic Cafe Conversations. A few weeks ago, no one knew who you were, and now many people know who you are. All right. So briefly explain, especially for the people in South Africa, where sometimes we don't know what's going on. What action actually catapulted you for people knowing who Alexander Tschugguel is?
It depends on where you live. So in Austria and Germany, I was already very active as a pro-family and pro-life activist. And as I am a very, hopefully at least, a very faithful Catholic, I try to keep also on, in touch with what happens in the church in Rome. And so when I heard of all the synods going on, I watched them very closely, especially the Amazonian Synod. And so I decided, together with my wife and a friend, to go to Rome at the beginning of the Synod, join some conferences, and get really in touch with the matter and with what is going on there. What I saw there was, for me, a shocking revelation of the current status of the Church. First of all, there was this strange Instrumentum Laboris, so the working paper of the Synod, which had so many paragraphs in it which are completely against our faith and our teaching. And then there were these very strange press conferences and so on and so forth. But what hit me most and the hardest was actually when on Friday before the beginning of the Synod, there was a kind of ritual in the Vatican Gardens where people, which looked very indigenous, and then I think a Franciscan brother and others were dancing around two statues and bowing down in front of them and shaking a rattle and so on and praying strange, not Catholic prayers. And the Pope sat next to it and at the end gave them his blessing. So this really struck us all. They also planted a tree in the Vatican Gardens. So I was really angry and I wanted to go into the Vatican Gardens and cut down this tree, but it's not that easy because the Vatican is, as you know, an own state and has its own rules, and so I do that. But what I saw were these statues. So I tried to find out what these statues are, and it came out. These are pagan idols. So idols which represent something we as Catholics do not believe in. They represent that the earth, so the creation, is God himself. So we always believe in the creator who created the earth, and they said, no, the earth itself is a goddess. And this goddess is called Pachamama, which is translated Mother Earth. So I did a big research. The Pachamama goddess is a goddess from the Andes in South America. And the ritual was an artificial mixture between different ways rituals are normally happening in South America. So I visited the church where those statues were depicted. Not depicted, where they even were kept between the rituals. And I saw them within this church, Santa Maria in Traspontina. And there were lots of volunteers there, so I talked to the volunteers and asked them about the statues and about what's going on in South America, and they told me terrible things, like, for example, that many of the missionaries do not want to baptize the people, and they think that's good because we should not shock them with it, and they have such a wonderful spirit there, and that's way better, and so on. And then I went to the church a second time with a friend of mine who is able to speak Portuguese. And in the church, we had this talk. He translated it to me because the Brazilians normally speak Portuguese, about what's going on. And they told us many things. First of all, the synod is a political synod. Then they told us about themselves, that they are communists. I'm not joking; it's a quote. Then they told us about those statues, that they represent the ecology integrales, or the integral ecology. It's a kind of new philosophical idea, very, how do you say this, esoteric, where they say kind of everything is connected through the spirits and so on, and if we hear the spirits, then everything is good. So they were clearly neglecting the fact that there is God up in heaven, and he created all of this, and they were not talking about this. And those statues were then, a week later, when I was already back in Vienna, in Austria, they were again used for a ritual. It was called Way of the Cross. It was a strange mixture between classical Catholic ways of doing things, together with modern Catholic music, and then clearly pagan music. They had a song which was called Pachamama. Then they had a song which I don't know how to spell it because it's Portuguese, and my Portuguese friend explained it to me, which is an official song of the communist youth in Brazil, actually. And then they danced around it and then incensed the Pachamamas and bowed down to it again, and then they put it in the church. And so I talked to all my closest friends, and especially to my wife, and she told me pray over it and ask a priest what to do. And I knew they have to get out of the church. That's clearly wrong. So yeah, I prayed. Then I talked to a few friends of mine. Then I asked the priest. The priest told me, do it. It's good, because that's what happens there is really terrible, and many cannot do what you could do. And when I saw I have the support of my wife, and I asked a friend of mine, a very close one, wonderful man, and together we booked a flight directly at the airport, a flight down to Rome. It's about 1 hour, 20 minutes from Vienna, and slept there for a few hours, went to the church in the early mornings. The churches were unfortunately closed, so we decided to pray a rosary. And when the rosary was finished, the doors were opened by staff, and we went inside, and I took the statues, 5 of it. I took 5 statues. So there was already a multiplication of statues, because at the beginning there were only 2. And took them, and together with my friend, we carried them to the bridge next to the Castel San Angelo, the big castle in Rome, and just threw them into the Tiber to get rid of them, and especially to prevent that these statues are used again in such a blasphemous ritual, in like the one in the Vatican Gardens, the one on the square of St. Peter. That was what's happening. And since this time, first we stayed anonymous, and we wanted the people to talk about what happened and not who did it. And then when we saw, no, it's really a big impact, and hundreds of thousands of people were trying to get in contact with us, it was really amazing. So you see, the Catholic faith is still a very strong one, even though people do not like to hear that. They wrote me and so on. They wrote not me, but the anonymous YouTube channel. And so we decided to go out, because then, first of all, within our own friend circles, people kind of knew who it was. And some of them guessed it right, so they thought that it was me and my friend and so on. And so we thought, better we go out and we can take care of how it comes out, then maybe the leftists or modernists bring us out, and then they prepare a bad thing in our backs. And so we prepared this video where I told the people that I did it. We decided that only I come out, because we didn't know if they want to punish us by law. And as I was the one who took the statues and he was only filming, of course, doesn't make it smaller what he did. He was wonderful. We thought it's easier that way, and it worked out. We reached millions of people. The Vatican had to explain what this is. They kind of contradicted themselves every day, and then our Holy Father came out and said, those Pachamamas were already, he confirmed that those statues were in fact Pachamamas and no statues of Mary or whatever. He apologizes to the people who get offended by this as Bishop of Rome. So it was already a very small apology, because he could have said, I'm the Pope of the Catholic Church. It was right what we did, so I want to apologize for the people who were offended. But he knows that this is not the fact. So that was the reason our Holy Father was very, very clear, actually, to apologize only as a Bishop of Rome, and to name the statues, the idols, the way they are, as Pachamamas. And since that, of course, many things followed. Really tons of interviews, but wonderful interviews. And many people, thousands and thousands of people, who tried to write me messages about their personal way of finding their way to God and finding their religion and their faith and so on. It was so wonderful. And all the priests from Europe especially, and from all over the world, but especially from Europe, wrote me, and it is so hopeful. It is a really good situation right now, even though it sounds terrible. But what I try to tell the people, and I think you will know that too, we as humans have our goal on earth is to find out what God, who God is, kind of, to find out what our duties is, to follow those, and to get in heaven. So our goal is to bring our immortal soul, our eternal soul, to God, where it belongs. But as God is not a tyrant, He gives us our completely free decision of whether we want to do that or not. The problem is only that if this free decision is a free one, the people also need the freedom here on earth to know about this decision. Many people don't know that. Many people think that their way and the only decisions they do in their life are the rest of the world. Is the rest of the world happy with what I do or not? What does society say? What does the media say? What does law say? And so on. And even though law, for example, law is very important, but as we all know, there were times on earth where the law was wrong. Especially here in Austria, we know it quite well. We had the Second World War. We had the Führer Adolf Hitler, the terrible one, and his laws were wrong. And he forced all the people who were really faithful Catholics, and he killed them, most of them. Many tried to fight against him. He killed them. So
our country, we had the laws of apartheid, which were wrong. The racial segregation laws of apartheid.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
For example, yeah, that's very good. Yes, you have in South Africa. Actually, in South Africa, there is a big history with wrong laws. The church, and in the eyes of many other clerics, is a political kind of vehicle. And as our Holy Father says, as if we consider ourselves members of humanity, we have to obey the United Nations, for example. Things like that, so they publicly
it's the same United Nations that supports contraception and supports abortion, but you are saying that as faithful Catholics, we must support this. That goes completely against our Catholic teaching. I just don't understand this.
Yes, and so what is for us is very interesting. Even though the times are getting harsh right now, they are getting clear too. We know who is on the side of our Lord and Savior and who is not. We know the people who try to defend our Lord and Savior, and we know the people who try to push him even more into the dirt and push maybe another nail through his foot or through his hands. And what do we know? The people who try to do that are the ones we are caring for. They are the ones we are praying for. They are the ones we are fighting for, because they are going to be lost, and hopefully not us. Why do I say hopefully? Because if we tend to let the devil put one drop of arrogance and one drop of pride in our minds, we can end up like them too. So it is not our duty to judge in a big scale. It is, for example, not our duty to tell the people, now the Pope is not the Pope anymore, whatever. Even if this is all right, even if this would all be right, and I don't know it actually, because I don't have this superior view of it, even if this all will be completely right, does it change the way you go to heaven? I don't think so. It changes the way the other people who lost the faith, it changes their possibilities to come back to the church. So we make this public to give them the possibility to come back to the church. And I want to tell you something very nice. I got thousands of emails, and many of them, I think more than 100, were emails where people wrote me how they decided to now become Catholic, actually, or go back to church and so on. So even though people tell us the opposite will happen, we know how God works. We know how God works.
And you say that, and I just a little, I'm just thinking again, the Holy Father, in one of his audiences, he said that God rules all religions. That statement alone. And what's getting to us, and I think a lot of faithful Catholics, is that we are the cardinals speaking out. We are the defending the faith. We're dogma of the Catholic Church. there's no salvation outside the church. We don't hear that one often. We don't hear that coming from the Vatican. There's no salvation outside the Catholic Church.
Yes.
The necessity for the Catholic Church just is the only means of salvation of soul. We don't hear this. But now, how can Pope Francis get away with saying all these things that are contrary to the deposit of faith from Jesus Christ?
Don't ask of God that he will make and let people suffer on earth for what they choose to do. Just think of Satan. Satan cannot offer you to rule over the hell. When he tried to offer Jesus many things, he could not offer him the rule over the hell. He could only offer him the short, limited rule over the world. So Satan can be the Lord of the world. So don't think that way, because if the Holy Father and others are right now doing all of that, it can be that they will even be promoted in the world. It can happen. They will be even more well known, and many people will like them actually. But the problem is, as soon as their life is over, God will take them to the court, and then they will be judged by what they did. And God is a very, very just God. God does not allow people to come to heaven if they don't want it, because it's not possible. So if on earth everything breaks down and everything is rotten, and maybe we lose our nice churches in Europe and all the old good and very good privileges of the church within our state and our culture, that's even a sacrifice we will have to bring. Because it's not about that. It's wonderful to have it, and it's good to have it, because then more people have the possibility to follow the church more easy without all the big fighting. But we know from Christ, if you want to follow him, deny yourself, take your cross, and follow him. He told us that this is going to happen. He told us that people will make fun of you, that people will push you out of society. So if we see that the Holy Father and other bishops are embraced by the modern world, we have to pray for them, and we have to, I tell you something, pray a rosary for him, sacrifice something for the Holy Father. He does not have the possibility to do that right now. He's not free enough, as we see. What he does is terrible. He even knows that kind of, if you watch him and so on, he doesn't have a happy face. He does not look joyful. Listen to his words. We have to pray for him. I cannot tell you anything else, because everything else would be only political. And if I want to talk about politics, it's nice, but politics is only step 2. It's not step 1.
That's true.
Alexander, could you just give us a little bit of insight into what you did a couple of days ago outside the cathedral in Vienna?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened on Saturday right now? It was very interesting. Wait a second, I have to just push something away from my laptop. It was very interesting because there was this concert happening last year. It was apparently the second time, but last year it was really a big scandal, where a famous gay activist, homosexual activist, Mr. Gary Kessler, and his organization Life Plus did a theater play called Jedermann, so Every Man, in our cathedral, where the Jedermann was half naked with disco lights in the middle of the cathedral in the sanctuary. And it was for the money went to the Brotherhood of Blessed Shara, which is actually placed in your diocese. So this is what happened last year. And this year it was again, it happened, but not this theater play, but a concert where the most famous drag queen, the homosexual artist of Austria, Mr. Thomas Neuwirth, who is also called Conchita Wurst. Conchita means conception and Wurst means sausage, but in Austrian, Wurst means I don't care or whatever, because we say normally das ist mir wurscht, and we mean I don't care. So conception, I don't care for the conception, or however you want to translate it. But he gave a concert actually, and a few other artists within the cathedral. And our cardinal, Archbishop Schönborn, and the parish priest, they invited them officially, and they invited the people officially. Even though it was organized by this homosexual activist, they invited them officially, and the invitation followed that it was the whole event took place under the protection of the Order of Malta, who collected all the money to send it to South Africa, to your diocese, to the Brotherhood of Blessed Gerard. So it was really terrible. First of all, I don't know if the Brotherhood of Blessed Gerard is very good or only good or maybe not good. I don't know it, actually. I heard a little bit of the priest who leads it, and in Austria some really like him, some don't like him, so I don't want to judge here. But what I know is that this terrible excuse, oh, we have to do the concert in the cathedral, followed up by other gay events around Vienna, like Pop Together, where they say biggest gay clubbing of Vienna, sexy shot boys welcome you at the entrance, or Drag Together, where drag queens have breakfast with you and explain you how wonderful their life is. It was in the same row of event, yes? They were all organized by the same man. To do that within a Catholic church, especially in the cathedral, where I first say 2, but now I know in 3 altars, the Blessed Sacrament is kept, and confession is heard every day from 7 a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. And masses are celebrated there every day. 5 or more masses are happening there. In this church, in the sanctuary of our cathedral, this happens. It's such a big sacrilege. It's really terrible, because just think of what God tells us. We have to honor him. This is not for the honor of God. We have to follow his rules. Those people clearly do not want to follow his rules. They even explain us why they don't follow his rules. So we see that it is wrong. We see it on many ways. And the apology, but the money was for a good cause. Actually, first of all, I don't know if the cause is very good, so that would be something I have to research. But second of all, the cause, it does not matter how good it is, can never explain and can never make up for the way things are done. So, for example, if I would say I shoot someone on the street, take his money, and then spend it for a good cause, nobody will tell me the shooting was okay.
Well, the church does teach, Alexander, that we cannot have a good come from an evil.
That's it.
Not acceptable. Yeah.
So that's very important. So now it is. I organized a rosary rally outside of the church. It was really beautiful. We sang Advent songs, wonderful German Advent songs, and we had the rosary 3 times, and we had a priest giving us the blessing at the end, and more than 120 people were there. It was really big, actually, because I invited the people only 24 hours before, or maybe 30 hours before, I don't know. So it was really wonderful to see that so many people come, and we had more than 1,000 people praying rosary together with us worldwide, and especially in Austria and Germany. And we saw also that the concert was not that good, not too many visitors, and the people were already defending themselves, and within the Order of Malta, within the diocese, people are against this concert now. So actually it kind of starts. So I don't lose my hope. I think people will come back to the point where they will respect God again. But what I have to say, what happened in the church cannot be undone just by so. I think they have to do maybe even a consecration. I don't know the church rules about that, but it's very important to do that, because what happened there is a big offense to God, a very big one.
Just very briefly, if you can tell us a little bit about your St. Boniface Institute and how that was sort of came about. Yes,
it is very easy. When the people all wrote me anonymous, and then publicly when I showed my face, we saw that we have to make up an organization where the people can connect with us, because it's not possible to do that as a private person. People would always try to, as soon as I do that, every leftist would tell me, it only does it for the money and so on. So that's not what I wanted to do. So we founded the St. Boniface Institute after our patron, St. Boniface, because he was the one destroying the donor oak and evangelizing the Germans, actually. So it is really nice for us. And we built up this institute to connect all the good Catholics, especially in Europe, but all around the world, and to show them that there is always hope, because there is no possibility to lose hope. Do you know there will come the time where all of us will lose hope and will lose faith? But do you know when the time is? If you're in heaven. because then you do not need hope and faith anymore. Love will stay, but hope and faith won't be there anymore. But on earth, there's never in our whole life is 1 second where you cannot hope. Do you know why? Because hope is that you hope for the good. You want the good thing. You want God. You hope for His will and everything. And we know that His will is here. The whole creation is His will, for example. That we decided to mess around with it is our decision, not His decision. He just allowed us to do so. So hope is always possible, because whenever you see a flower, a star, another human being, whenever you see something, you can always see this is God's creation. This is God's creation. The terrible things you see are only the diseases and perversions we see within the creation right now because of sin. But that's something which will be gone. So I'm very hopeful.
Yeah. Alexander, I just think, and I'm sure I'll speak for Jason and Daniel as well, but just from my personal perspective, and definitely that of my family, it's like the action you took in Rome was inspiring. I know we've had Bishop Schneider comment on that. Many people have spoken out about that, and I know you've also said that you've received emails and support. And I'm paraphrasing now, but there is that statement that says, when you stiffen your own spine and you're brave, you give people the permission to stiffen theirs. And I think that action of yours really has fueled us and other Catholics, to stand up and to be brave and to realize that we aren't alone. We are the universal church, as Jason said earlier. And you're right, the times are tough and they're difficult. And, at times you feel overwhelmed and you can almost at times feel quite despondent. But then we remember, that Jesus said that the gates of hell would not prevail against His church. And I just think, especially in South Africa, we don't have very many, your action polarized Catholics, I think, for those who knew what happened. Very few were unsure of the side they took. They either thought what you did was fantastic or they were against it. And sort of where we are, the space we're in, a lot of the priests who are speaking out, I'm not saying all of them think like this, but those on Twitter, those on social media platforms in our area are against what you did. And are saying that it's ridiculous, it wasn't an idol, blah, blah, blah. So for Catholics who do feel like we do, it's, again, people like you speaking out, and that it really is so inspiring and strengthening. And I just think maybe just to sort of close, before Jason ends everything, is to ask you, what message do you have specifically for us, for those people who do feel sometimes that you are a little bit of a voice in the wilderness? So words of inspiration, Alexander.
Okay, the main words of inspirations I have for everybody is very easy. Right now, that the time is hard, it seems, that's true, and everything. But as you said too, it is a kind of decision. There's now this line of people who do not want to talk about the faith itself, but only about the political aspects and why it is important to have charity. And on the other side, people who try to understand what God's plan is for them. But there are so many fights which are here on earth where you can start, for example, to be a hero yourself, and even way bigger than my little act could ever be. For example, the pro-life cause. You can always fight for the pro-life cause, because whenever you have a success there, you save a soul. In the second, you save, for example, you prevent 10 to 20 people, the whole surrounding of the abortionist doctor, to do the abortion, which is good for their soul, and you save a child's soul, first of all. Second of all, the fight for the family. You can always defend your own family publicly, of course, by fighting for the marriage and for families and so on, and also privately by really trying to take care of your own relatives, your own mother, father, sisters, brothers and daughters and so on, and sons, and of course grandmothers and cousins, because they need you. They need your clarity. You have to serve them. Don't rule over them. Serve them. Look what they need. Look at their faces. See if they are happy or not happy. Try to visit them and so on. I often do not manage to do so, and it's terrible for me, because that's something very important. And then the last thing, pray many times every day for your own soul too, and for your family's sake. Pray every time, go to Mass, try to visit the traditional Mass. I know in your diocese it's very difficult, but this will come. But it will come. It will come. I know it. I know it. It was already there. It will come again. So that's wonderful to see. My main words of hope and to push the people is you can lose nothing. The only thing you can lose is something you will lose, even if you do not fight. It is your body right now and your health maybe. You will grow old. You will die somehow. Your soul will not grow old. Your soul will not die. So if you save your soul and you fight for the soul, you cannot lose. It's not possible. Why? Because God already won the fight for us. There is no fight for us to win if it comes to our soul. Our soul can be saved only by following the one who already saved it for us. And if it comes to your body, put your body second. That's it. It's hard, it sounds hard, but actually it's a very easy decision.
It's such a simple message, but it's hard.
So I think I have to say goodbye now to you, because I have this appointment. But I'm very happy to see that in South Africa and all around the world, the people are so fantastic. I would love to visit Africa, not only one country, but maybe a few, because I think within Africa, you see something, even though South Africa is different maybe, which is wonderful. Many African Catholics I know have a way purer and way clearer faith than Europeans, because the Africans normally tend to be less decadent, and that's a very good sign. So I'm praying for you. Please pray for our institute and pray for me and my family, and we'll stay in contact through Christ.
Thank you. Thanks,
Alex. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.